In Star Wars: The Bad Batch, more casual Star Wars fans were introduced to one of the galaxy's most infamous shadow ports, Ord Mantell. First mentioned all the way back in The Empire Strikes Back, Ord Mantell has appeared in a ton of Star Wars media over the years, and it's been mentioned in even more. This planet's reputation precedes it, the reputation of a lawless smuggler's haunt. But there's actually a lot more layers to this planet than is immediately apparent, and in this video, we're going to be digging through them all.
Attention, Sergeant on deck!
Located in the Bright Jewel system of the Mid-Rim's Bright Jewel sector, Ord Mantell was first settled by the Republic around 12,000 years before the Battle of Yavin, and for millennia it was one of the Republic's few outposts in the New Territories, the then unexplored northern wedge of the galaxy. For thousands of years, it was one of the Republic's most remote colonies, acting as a base for scouts heading further out into the New Territories. But it was originally settled for far less mundane reasons. The planet was first discovered by Corellian colonists who established the planet's first settlements, but the planet was quickly taken over by the Republic, which transformed it into a military staging ground. The Republic at the time was rapidly descending into xenophobia, and it would soon be taken over by the Pious Dea cult, which used the Republic military to wage genocidal crusades against non-human species all across the Rim. It waged these wars from military outposts known as ordnance/regional depots, which served as mustering points for the Crusaders and key links in their supply chains. The Pious Dea were ultimately overthrown by a Jedi-led coalition, but their crusades left their mark on the galaxy, and even 10,000 years later, many former ordnance/regional depots still bore the prefix Ord Mantell among them. And Ord Mantell wasn't just any ordnance/regional depot, it was one of the most important ones, the primary depot for the whole New Territories. It was the rallying point for the xenophobic armies that persecuted the Ithorians and Zabraks during the Great Northern Crusade and other campaigns like it, and much of the planet's early infrastructure was built on plunder, on the innocent bloodshed by the Pious Dea. And even as Ord Mantell was being used as a mustering ground for one set of crusaders, its settlers were carrying out a crusade of their own. Ord Mantell, you see, was never uninhabited. It had its own indigenous sentient species, the Mantellian History. These titanic reptiles were considered primitive by the standards of outsiders, but they had their own rudimentary language, wore clothing, and made use of simple weapons. Nonetheless, their societies were tribal, hunter-gatherer affairs. The Corellian settlers considered them to just be particularly cunning animals. The Corellians' expansionist philosophy brought them into conflict with the Savrips, which led to the Savrips being hunted nearly to extinction over the course of millennia. By the time of the Empire, there were few Mantellian Savrips left, and the galaxy remembered them mostly for being pieces on the standard Degenerated board. What's more, committing genocide against Ord Mantell's native peoples wasn't enough for the planet's settlers. They destroyed the planet itself too. The early settlers on Ord Mantell were farmers, and even by the time of the Empire, the bulk of the planet was still rural. But the equatorial regions of the planet were dominated by urban sprawl, industrial zones, and vast junkyards, which thoroughly polluted large swaths of the planet. Millennia of industrial activity, including the burning of fossil fuels, poured tons of pollutant gases into Ord Mantell's atmosphere, causing its climate to warm and its polar ice caps to melt. By the time of the Empire, Ord Mantell had been completely transformed by the settlers and completely ruined, most would say. At the very poles, Ord Mantell was mostly mountains, tundra, and seas, with coasts defined by dramatic fjords carved by ice that had long since melted. Its equatorial regions were dominated by urban sprawl, junkyards, and coal yards, as well as scattered forests and seas. The coal yards and industrial zones stretched far into the planet's interior, keeping most of Ord Mantell shrouded with brown smog and pink clouds. The planet's oceans were dotted with volcanic islands. Its shores typically consisted of steel cliffs and mountain ranges stretched all across the planet, with plateaus and open plains between them. Ord Mantell had 2 large moons, both of which orbited fairly close, and as a result, ground quakes and other forms of tectonic activity were common. Apart from the twin moons, Ord Mantell had 15 natural satellites, as well as the ring-shaped space station Jubilee Wheel. The planet had a total population of 4 billion, divided between isolated farming communities in the planet's outback and urban population in the industrial zones. A majority of the population lived in Ord Mantell's equatorial cities, which were full of casinos and tourist traps. These areas were fairly safe, and they saw an average of 1 billion tourists a year due to Ord Mantell's location at the nexus of several major hyperspace routes. Other urban areas were much more shady, smugglers' haunts and shadow ports that were the heart of the planet's thriving criminal underworld. Though large parts of Ord Mantell were dominated by farms, the planet's economy was primarily industrial. Ord Mantell manufactured and distributed consumer goods, and it also continued to serve as a military base and weapons depot well after the time of the Pius Dea. These industries were largely controlled by Ord Mantell's powerful criminal underworld, which practically controlled the entire planet. Ord Mantell had a central government, the Ord Mantell Central Authority, which was led by a governor and based in Wallport, the planet's capital city. However, this government was completely corrupt, more of a shell for the planet's criminal operations than anything else. Most criminal factions had a presence on Ord Mantell, and they competed for control of the planet. In particular, Black Sun had a strong presence on Ord Mantell by the time of the Clone Wars. After the defeat of the Pius Dea, Ord Mantell ceased to be a Crusader's hub, but it remained a Republic military outpost, and its settlers' atrocities against the planet's natives continued. For thousands of years, Ord Mantell was known mostly as an archetypal middle-of-nowhere planet, but as the Republic slowly pushed into the new territories and its industrial sector developed, the planet became increasingly significant. This led to a number of battles on the planet over the course of the Republic's later millennia. It was conquered by the Neo-Crusaders during the Mandalorian Wars, racked by a civil war with the local separatist faction during the Cold War, and defended from Sith aggression by the Jedi during the New Sith Wars. During the Republic's final centuries, Ord Mantell became a regional hub, one of the most politically powerful and economically significant planets in the new territories. This power largely stemmed from its thriving criminal underworld, which made Ord Mantell, or parts of it anyway, fairly wealthy. It also made the planet thoroughly corrupt, however, leading to Jedi intervention on multiple occasions. During the Clone Wars, Ord Mantell was the headquarters for the Republic's 8th Sector Army, nicknamed Bright Jewel Command, which was in charge of the campaigns against the intergalactic banking clan's strongholds on the Republic's northern periphery. Bright Jewel Command took over Ord Mantell's old military bases and weapons depots, and it used the planet in much the same way the Pius Dea Crusaders once had, as a command post, mustering ground, and a key link in their supply chain. Ord Mantell also had a strong Black Sun presence during the Clone Wars, which led to the planet becoming briefly involved with the Shadow Collective later in the war. It was attacked by separatist forces under the command of General Grievous twice. One attack was directed against Republic military forces early in the war, and another later in the war was directed at Black Sun's strongholds. During the Clone Wars, the Galactic Senate ensured Ord Mantell's loyalty to the Republic by straight up bribing the planet's government, but this practice ended after the rise of the Empire, as the Empire chose to occupy the planet and keep it in line through military force instead. Predictably, this led to Ord Mantell contributing great sums of money to the Alliance to restore the Republic, which the Alliance used to fund the construction of Echo Base on Hoth. After the Battle of Endor, Ord Mantell was taken by the New Republic, though it saw battles several times during the later stages of the Galactic Civil War, as the Imperial remnants were strongest in the new territories. During the Yuuzhan Vong War, Ord Mantell was flooded with refugees from the Vong's first targets, and it was attacked directly by the Vong early in the war, though it was successfully defended by Mandalorian warriors. So that's our look at Ord Mantell, another of the galaxy's hives of scum and villainy. But what do you think? Are there other Star Wars worlds you'd like us to take a look at? Feel free to post your thoughts in the comments section below. As always guys, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.